Hi, this is Holly Robichaud with breaking news on U.S. term limits. We're going to be discussing what's happening, how we're making progress, and how we plan to pass U.S. term limits on Congress. Each week, I'll be bringing you updates on what's happening in the states and what's happening down in D.C. Not since the Civil War has our country been so polarized. We're so divided. But there's one issue that Democrats, Republicans, and independents all agree upon, and that's congressional term limits. Polling data shows that 80% of the people, that's right, 80% of the people want term limits. So each week, we'll be telling you what's happening and how you can help us in passing congressional term limits. Last November, we had a record number of candidates who signed our pledges. We're now up to 130 members of Congress who support a congressional term limits amendment. It can make the winning difference in races for Congress. For example, in Ohio, J.D. Vance, who's running for Senate against career politician Tim Ryan, well, Vance signed the pledge, Ryan adamantly refused. And look at who's now the U.S. Senator. Term limits can make the winning difference. It's important to support candidates who support term limits. In state legislative races across the country, we also saw that it made the winning difference. 840 supporters were elected nationwide. One of our biggest supporters was Ron DeSantis. We've all heard about the agreements that Kevin McCarthy has made to become Speaker of the House. The one the media is not mentioning is term limits on Congress. That's right, we're finally going to get a vote. The legislation has been sponsored by Representative Ralph Norman. Will you help us get it passed? We'd like you to contact your representative and tell them to support House Joint Resolution 11. That's House Joint Resolution 11. As we get closer towards the vote, we will tell you how we're further mobilizing to finally get term limits on Congress passed. Now it's time for the poster child politician of the week, and there's so many to pick from. Remember, in Congress, you're considered a newbie if you've served 12 years or less. So where do we start? Let's start in Michigan with U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow, who announced recently that she's retiring after 24 years. Don't think that's many years? Well, that's 4 terms in the U.S. Senate. Before that, she served 2 years in the House. Now at age 72, Stabenow first got elected to public office in 1974 when Gerald Ford was the president of the United States and the Ford Pinto was the biggest selling car. She served a lifetime. So with members like Stabenow, Mitch McConnell, and Chuck Schumer, and others who spent a lifetime in Congress, Congress will never term limit themselves, right? Probably not. That's why the state legislative races are so important. There's a way to bypass Congress. U.S. term limits has teams working in many of the state legislatures to pass our resolution calling for a convention for a term limits amendment. So you're probably wondering what's happening in the states. In Tennessee, Arizona, Kentucky, and New Hampshire, legislation has been filed. In Ohio, South Dakota, Utah, Montana, Idaho, Maine, Oklahoma, and Indiana, legislation is getting ready to drop. In Michigan, we are welcoming Dr. Sherry O'Donnell as our new Michigan State Chair, who will spearhead our efforts in the Wolverine State. February 27th is National Term Limits Day. What is National Term Limits Day? It's the day that commemorates the ratification of the 22nd Amendment in 1951 that imposed term limits on the President of the United States. That's 68 years ago. If term limits is good enough for the President of the United States, then it's good enough for Congress, don't you think? On this show on termlimits.com, we will be telling you how to make February 27th a day to remember. We have the momentum to pass term limits, but we need your help. We can't do it alone. So please go to termlimits.com and get involved. I'm Holly Robichaud, and each week we'll be giving you more updates so that you can stay involved and help us pass term limits.